A boy wakes up in a completely dark place and thinks he's inside a nightmare. Confused, he notices a sliver of light appearing in a corner of that tight little room, revealing a forest outside during late afternoon. Then, a status panel appears on the screen and, with a female voice, tells the user that his name is Dragon Egg. Other than that, explanations about status and items will be provided by the skill Divine Voice, level 1, which will also notify him when he levels up. The dragon asks if this is a game, and the voice replies that Divine Voice cannot provide that kind of information at the first level. He asks who he's talking to and where he is, but the system repeats the same answer as before. Nervous, the dragon ends up moving the egg too much and falling from the top of the tree where it was, gaining the skill Fall Resistance. Besides losing HP, the dragon also obtains the title Clumsy. Living up to that title, the poor thing rolls downhill and almost falls into a lake. At the water's edge, he sees his reflection and gets scared when he confirms that he really is an egg. A very valid reason to panic. However, the system corrects him, explaining that he is actually a dragon egg, an F-rank creature that will give birth to a real dragon, but will die if it breaks too early. The egg has no power at all and almost no intelligence because its brain is still developing, and even though it may one day become a feared dragon, an egg is still considered a great gourmet appetizer, and adventurers usually eat one whenever they find it during expeditions, unless the mother is nearby, of course. Confused by all this talk about dragons and adventurers, the egg ends up rolling even further down a slope, raising his rolling level from 1 to 2. Speaking of development, the dragon realizes he's able to minimally control his rolling and, with some practice, starts making a few turns and adjusting his speed better. But he ends up falling from a huge height straight onto the ground, raising Fall Resistance and Clumsy from level 1 to level 2. His HP now drops to just 3 out of 5. And he fears dying like a nobody in this unfamiliar forest. After spending the night sleeping, he notices that his HP recovers with a good nap. Rested, he continues his rolling journey, very aware of how strange it is to be living through this. By the way, he wonders when this egg will hatch someday, and he'll become a real dragon, a terrifying creature, though he has no idea how he'll get there. At most, he imagines he's inside an RPG or something like that, where you need to evolve with experience points and so on, even though fighting enemies as an egg seems extremely difficult. Speaking of enemies, the almost dragon spots a bug in the forest and checks its status. It is a shadow worm, which literally has the title Egg Devourer. Not surprisingly, the monster turns toward the dragon egg and starts chasing him without thinking twice. The egg doesn't hesitate either and gets out of there as fast as he can. Truth be told, even though he worked a lot on his rolling yesterday, he figures he won't escape this one with that alone, so he manages to think of a strategy to defeat the creature, even under enormous pressure. Soon, when he gets near a cliff, the egg makes a maneuver to leave the worm at the edge, and then, managing to get behind it, he pushes the monster off. Even though he falls together with it, the worm's own body cushions the fall and doesn't damage the egg. Suddenly, the shadow worm lifts its body and emits a strange energy, making the egg think this is really the end. However, the insect ends up collapsing and dying for good. With that, the winner earns 12 experience points, and because of his new title, Wandering Egg, he also receives a bonus exp. Realizing that he truly evolves when defeating enemies, the egg concludes that he really is in an RPG. From this moment on, he is a level 5 dragon egg, reaching the maximum level needed for the next evolution phase. Thus, a development tree is shown to him, where 2 transformation options appear. Baby Dragon, Rank D. Little Dragon, Rank D+. The Little Dragon is a dwarf race of dragon, capable of reaching a smaller maximum size than usual, and feared by adventurers because of its fire breath. The Baby Dragon, however, has very tender meat, considered a delicacy delicious when seasoned. This race isn't very good for combat because its fangs are too small, but its advantage is having the potential to grow and become various species of dragons in the future, even though most end up becoming prey for adventurers. After such an unappealing description of the baby dragon, the egg chooses to become a little dragon, since it seems like the safer option. But suddenly, 2 magical hands appear and touch his shell, saying that he should aim for the top and grow strong, because expectations for him are high. The system then warns that Divine Voice has risen to level 2. When the voice disappears, the egg reflects on what he just heard, and even though he felt safer becoming a little dragon, it's true that the baby dragon can evolve well if it survives. With that, his choice is made, and the egg hatches, giving life to his new race, Baby Dragon. From there, the system notifies him about his new level 1 title, Son of the Dragon King, where all resistance skills below level 5 receive a boost. Aside from that, he also gains abilities like Dragon Scale and Baby Breath. Checking his status window, his stats increased considerably, but it seems his HP and MP do not return to maximum after he evolves, which means he needs to sleep anyway to recover. Finally, the dragon thanks the Shadow Worm for providing that pile of experience points, but setting that aside, the little monster begins to feel a huge hunger the moment he lays eyes on the insect. It's true that the worm is grotesque, but the dragon's instincts speak louder, begging for the winged monster to devour its prey and regain strength for the next challenge. Since that's the case, even if he wasn't comfortable with it, the dragon dives into the worm and viciously feeds on his victim. After all, according to him, you can't grow without consuming protein. To be completely honest, the baby dragon slept just as his race claims, like a baby. When he wakes up on the trunk of a tree, for a moment he thinks he's going to look at his paws and see that, in reality, they're his human hands and he has returned to his previous life. However, no such thing. There he is, in this strange new world. The only conclusion that seems obvious to him is that, even though he has no idea how, he ended up reincarnating in another universe, where he lives inside an RPG in the skin of a child dragon. Thinking about it now, the dragon can no longer clearly remember who he was before this. He only has the feeling that he used to be human, as if his memories had been devoured just like the Shadow Worm. Speaking of which, when he looks back, the winged lizard notices the sudden presence of several shadow worms very close to him. And now that he is leveled up, he no longer feels the slightest fear of that type of enemy. On the contrary, he attacks the entire group without hesitation, tearing them apart one by one and accumulating enough experience points to reach level 3 as a baby dragon. With that, he gains access to Baby Breath, a fire ability that greatly increases his combat capability, making his path to more and more experience points much easier. In that same fight, due to the number of enemies defeated, the baby dragon acquires other skills like Dragon Punch, reaching as high as level 15. Then, after finishing off all the worms in the area, his stomach starts rumbling again. Even with all the insects available for him to eat, the dragon thinks about eating something different this time, and then he spots a handful of mushrooms near a tree. However, after eating those fungi, all he gets is an intoxication that makes him throw everything up, which teaches him a valuable lesson. Don't eat random mushrooms without knowing what they are. At least, the clever little guy acquired the skill Poison Resistance, although his clumsy title has now increased to level 3. Next, the baby dragon quickly realizes he won't survive just on insects. So after feeling sick from the mushroom, it's time to look for a new prey, something with more substance. Going deeper into the forest, the dragon comes across a level 6 gray wolf, whose stats are weaker than his. Right away, he thinks it would be a great idea to hunt that wolf. So, showing impressive speed, he positions himself next to the lupine creature and scorches it with fire. In fact, by doing that, he notices he could turn his victims into a nice barbecue, which ends up improving his cooking skills in this wild world. Separating a grilled piece of meat and taking a bite, he concludes that this is exactly what he needed. As time goes by, the baby dragon starts enjoying hunting gray wolves and grilling them, eventually reaching level 20. Since he needs to reach level 25 to evolve again, the baby believes it shouldn't take long, although he notices he's leveling up more and more slowly. At least he's practically becoming a professional grill master from roasting so much meat, which means he's adapting to this new life without too many problems. Even so, it's really annoying to spend the days only listening to the divine voice, which has sort of become his only friend in this strange world, even though, truth be told, she's far from being a friend at this point. Speaking of which, the baby dragon hears distant voices, and although he can't understand a single word, he gets excited upon realizing they are human voices. Without wasting time, hiding behind a tree, he approaches and discovers a trio of humans dressed in tunics and armor, yet another proof that the baby dragon is indeed in a medieval fantasy world. And speaking of that, he needs to remind himself at all times that he is now a dragon, something that could scare people. Still, thinking he's cute enough to show himself without being lynched, the baby checks the trio's status. Levels 11, 14, and 6, respectively. None of them are stronger than the dragon, although their advantage lies in their numbers. Either way, eager to meet new people, the baby dragon officially launches Operation Friendship and uses all his charm to win the adventurers' sympathy. Even so, even without understanding what they were saying, The dragon sees a malicious smile on the lips of the man in front, and with no time to react, he takes a sword slash to the belly that opens a huge wound. The dragon insists he doesn't want to be a threat to humans, but he is struck by an electric spell from the group's mage, leaving his body numb. He gains magic resistance from it, but he's far from intact in this fight. On the contrary, the poor baby is practically already at death's door, hearing the enemy's footsteps approaching. The baby dragon regrets believing humans could become friends with him, and after struggling so much to evolve from an egg to this stage, he sees no way out of the mess he got himself into. Therefore, this is his end. In one last attempt to escape, the baby refuses to die and tries to move his body. But the wound is so severe that it no longer makes sense to try. At that moment, as the warrior prepares for the final blow, the level 6 girl from the trio steps in front of him to stop the attack. The hatchling doesn't know what she's saying, but her body language makes it clear that she's defending him. Then the same woman begins healing the monster with magic, giving him a warm and comforting feeling. For a moment, he thinks she's asking if he's okay, but even though he isn't, that's what her smile suggests. The dragon opens her status window and discovers her name is Myria Melania, a human of Earth. Even though she was almost out of mana points, the girl kept healing him an unbelievable attitude. Because of that healing, the dragon's body was slowly recovering from the paralysis, thinking that she would only leave once he was completely healed. The baby dragon planned to keep pretending he was still in bad shape, even after his body had regenerated, which earned him the title Liar from the Divine Voice. Once again, the hatchling thought he understood what the girl had said, until he obtained the skill Greek language, suggesting that he would understand people better and better as he leveled up this technique. Suddenly, a sinister sound from some creature echoed through the forest, and the two men from the trio, who were farther away, began screaming in despair. Myria ran to help, but the baby dragon grabbed her by the sleeve. Judging by the screams of the two guys who were stronger than she was, the hatchling was certain that the healer would die easily, especially since she had no mana points left. Even so, Myria pulled free from the dragon and kept running to help her companions. Meanwhile, because he hadn't been completely healed, the dragon's body was still partially paralyzed, preventing him from moving. Desperate, he forced his body to get up and, driven by the desire to help that girl, he broke through the paralysis and ran after her. Soon, when he reached the source of the noise, he found himself facing a C-rank stone hatchling, with an absurd HP of 197. Around the giant creature, Myria and the others were lying on the ground, apparently unconscious. Finally, the stone monster turned toward the baby dragon and attacked. Check out these videos appearing on your screen and subscribe so you don't miss the next part.